ridiculing and Democratic rough-riding over Republicans whom Roosevelt called "my men." But while February waned, Roosevelt was abandoning partisanship to back a Democratic bill requiring the state to break its contract with the Manhattan Elevated Railroad by compelling reduction in fares from 10 to 5 cents. Roosevelt viewed this as a boon for the working classes and a blow against financier Jay Gould and others who, despite Roosevelt's own wealth, were his enemies. If someone else had not introduced the bill, he declared, he would have done so himself. Passed handily, Assembly Bill No. 58 went to Grover Cleveland on March 1. Before signing it into law, the governor followed a policy he had exhibited as mayor of Buffalo. He settled his considerable girth into a commodious chair to read a bill in its entirety. But as he did so and the hands of the clock passed midnight, he recognized that he was being asked to put his name to a measure that flew in the face of a clause of the Constitution of the United States, which prohibited passage of a law by any state that would impair obligations of contracts. While states had authority to alter or repeal charters of corporations, they were compelled not to interfere in legal commercial contracts. In his review of the performance of the company covered by the bill, he found the firm had fulfilled all its contractual obligations. Acutely aware of the popularity of the bill, he gambled with his future in politics by vetoing it. Going to bed, he said out loud, "Grover Cleveland, you've done the business for yourself tonight." The next day, his veto message to the legislature said, "The state should not only be strictly just, but scrupulously fair." He later told a friend, Richard Watson Gilder, that he went to bed that night expecting to be the most unpopular man in the state of New York. The next morning, as he went down to the executive office, he was, he would recall, feeling pretty blue, but putting a smiling face on it. Going through the morning's mail, he asked his secretary, Dan Lamont, "What have the morning papers got to say about me? Anything?" "Why, yes," said Lamont enthusiastically. "They are all praising your political courage." While the question was floating as to whether Cleveland's surprising veto would be overridden, Theodore Roosevelt instead engaged in some political soul-searching. To the astonishment of Democrats and Republicans, he leapt to his feet in the Assembly to announce that he had come to the conclusion the governor was right. "I have to say with shame that when I voted for this bill," he confessed on the Assembly floor, "I did not act as I think I ought to have acted." He said he had weakly yielded, partly in a vindictive spirit toward the infernal thieves of the Elevated Railroad, and partly in answer to the popular voice of New York. Condemning the wealthy criminal class, he said he would rather leave politics, having the feeling he had done what was right, than win approval by acting as I ought not to. Without the assent of Roosevelt and those who followed his lead, there were not enough votes to override, and the Republican found himself cited in one newspaper for having demonstrated characteristic manliness, but denounced by downstate editors who favored the fare reduction bill. He was also branded a weakling, a hoodlum, a bogus reformer, and the chief of the dudes. Hailed for an act of political courage, the big one could not overlook Roosevelt's equally brave act. Grateful and admiring, he invited Roosevelt to discuss a subject of mutual interest. Eager to learn what the big one had in mind, Roosevelt went. The topic was dear to both men's hearts and the centerpiece of a growing national movement, civil service reform. Indeed, Roosevelt had introduced a bill intended to reduce political patronage in the state. Unfortunately, on orders from the bosses of both political parties, the measure was blocked in the Judiciary Committee of the Assembly. With ally Isaac Hunt at his side, Roosevelt sat in the executive chamber as the Democrat Grover Cleveland devoted an hour to expressing support for Roosevelt's stalled bill and consulting with the two Republicans on how to wrench it from committee so a bipartisan coalition could be hammered together to pass it. Leaving the conference, Roosevelt was delighted, as he was wont to say, that he had won such powerful support. But it was a fluke of timing which provided the breakthrough. Presiding over a meeting of the Judiciary Committee,
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.